If you ask me, I think the NBA has been super entertaining so far, but I know it was hyped up to be one of the best offseason in years in terms of player movement. So for today's video, I wanted to give you guys 15 offseason trade ideas to shake up the NBA landscape. And I'll give my thoughts and reasonings for each trade, obviously, throughout this video. There could be a short-term reasoning for this trade. There could be a long-term reasoning for this trade. You can let me know down below if you're a fan of one of these teams that I mentioned in this video, or maybe just want to give your thoughts and opinions. You can tell me a trade you like. You can obviously tell me a trade you didn't like as well. Let's get into it. So the first one I want to talk about is just actually an in-division trade between the Chicago Bulls and the Indiana Pacers. The Chicago Bulls are going to be a team that we're going to mention a couple times in this video. The first one is going to be Benedict Mathurin going to the Chicago Bulls in exchange for Ayo Dosunmu and a 2026 Portland first-round pick. If there's something we've learned this offseason, the Pacers are not going to be willing to go into the luxury tax with this team right now. It's been some sketchy reporting how much they've actually given Miles Turner on the open market. Some people are saying it was around $20 million a year. There's some reports that it was around $25 million a year, but it wasn't enough for him to not leave them for a division rival for the Milwaukee Bucks. And yes, they will use the excuse that they would have went into the luxury tax if Tyrese Haliburton didn't get injured. And yes, that could definitely be true, but their track record has to allow us to maybe question that a little bit. So with this trade, with Benedict Mathurin being a restricted free agent in the 2026 offseason, they can get a cheaper player in return in Ayo Dosunmu, a good role player. He can move well without the ball. He's a solid defender on that end of the floor. And like I said, will just cost a lot less than what Benedict Mathurin most likely will on the open market, as Chicago gets a higher upside swing here in Benedict Mathurin, and that's what Chicago should do. Chicago should either try to bottom out or really bank on upside this offseason, and Benedict Mathurin definitely has some higher upside in this league, or at least more than Ayo Dosunmu. He averaged 16 points last year. He didn't shoot super well from three at 34%, but is still a solid scorer overall, and I think would be a better long-term answer than Ayo Dosunmu. And the Pacers would also get a first-round pick that could end up being a first, could end up turning into multiple seconds down the line. Either way, this could make sense for both teams and their current long-term visions. And you know what? We're going to stay on the topic of a Chicago Bulls trade idea. This one is going to send Coby White and Jalen Smith to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for a first-round pick unprotected in 2026 from Golden State, a 2028 pick swap, and Jonathan Kuminga in a 4-year deal sign and trade going to Chicago. It's a loaded one. So for the Warriors side of things, it does feel like they would have signed Jonathan Kuminga already. It feels like if they do get a good deal with a sign and trade option, they would trade Kuminga. And if they don't, it's not like they want Jonathan Kuminga. They like to have Jonathan Kuminga as the asset. They think they can optimize their half-court offense in a different way. And Coby White would fit like a glove in Golden State, somebody that could play off of Steph Curry. He could play on the ball as well if Steph needs to go to the bench. He's a microwave scorer. He can come off screens. He can run flare actions in Golden State off of Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler, and I think would be a perfect fit there. I think just getting another high-octane scoring guard, basically that modern-day Klay Thompson next to Steph Curry, is what Golden State needs to make the money work. You also get Jalen Smith, who could space the floor. They missed out on somebody like a Brook Lopez or Clint Capella this offseason. They could end up with an Al Horford still, but either way, you need more depth options in the front court, and you could take a flyer on Jalen Smith. You would need to rework an extension with Coby White, but delaying that extension by a year rather than paying Kuminga right now could help Golden State duck the second apron long term. As for Chicago, this is a team that needs to bottom out, and maybe if they're trading away Coby White, hey, you get a 2026 first rounder. Maybe that's not going to be the greatest pick in the world, but you can get a 2028 pick swap, because who knows what Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy are going to look like in 2028 when they are done with their current contracts, and you get the high upside swing in Jonathan Kuminga, who's definitely a polarizing free agent right now. He had a really good 2024, took a little bit of a step back in 2025 because of injuries, but if you can allocate your resources to his long-term development, and you can prioritize him in the half court and his feel for the game at his age and his athleticism, this could be a move that can make you look very smart in the long term. I think this is a win-win deal. Maybe Chicago would prefer to get a later first-round pick than 2026, and they would be more incentivized to do this deal if they were getting a first-round pick when Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond retire. Over the weekend, the Washington Wizards did not trade a single player out, but they got Cam Whitmore coming in, and they have a ton of wings over there in the DMV area, so I'm going to have them trade away Corey Kispert to the Portland Trailblazers in exchange for Matisse Thybulle's matching contract and a 2028 Orlando first-round pick that Portland got from Memphis when they traded down on the night of the 2025 draft. Corey Kispert is under a great contract. It's around $13 million right now. and it slightly descends all the way till 2029. So he's under a guaranteed contract for the next 4 years, making up less than 10% of the team's total cap space. Last year, he ended up shooting 36% from three in what felt like a down year for Corey Kispert. He's not a great defender by any means, but he's exactly what Portland needs, either coming off the bench or maybe playing in a starting role in a pinch because of his elite high volume three-point shooting. Portland has a lot of volatile three-point shooters in terms of Scoot Henderson, Drew Holiday from last year, now coming over this year to Portland. Shaedon Sharpe has been volatile from three. Danny Avdija doesn't have the largest sample size of being an elite three-point shooter, and same with Toumani Camara. So you can get a sure thing in Corey Kispert, and hey, it worked out when you traded for another Wizards wing last offseason in Danny Avdija, so they already have that connection. He's under a good contract going forward. I like this trade a lot for Portland. As for Washington, you're basically taking on Matisse Thybulle's expiring deal, opening up even more cap space in the 2026 offseason when you already have Chris Middleton's $33 million, CJ McCollum's $30 million, Marcus Smart's $21 million, all off the books. That is $84 million expiring. And then when you also add in Kelly Olynyk and Rashawn Holmes, and in this trade scenario, Matisse Thybulle, that would be over $100 million in cap space freed up. And the only guys under contract are players that were drafted in 2023, 2024, and in 2025. You also pick up Orlando's first round pick in 2028. And I think this makes a ton of sense because you can also allow more touches and shots for the newly drafted Trey Johnson, Will Riley, Cam Whitmore, who you just acquired, Bilal Coulibaly, who you want to maximize here in year number 3. This might be my favorite trade that I'm going to mention in this video. And this may be the biggest trade that I'm going to mention in this video. So it doesn't feel like Milwaukee is going to trade Giannis Antetokounmpo. Hey, if Giannis requests a trade, they also don't have to trade him. But Giannis is extension eligible in 2026. And if there is the slightest chance that he could opt out in the 2027 offseason and become an unrestricted free agent, and he could leave you for nothing because teams will have cap space then, you need to trade him immediately. So what if Atlanta, who acquired Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, Kristaps Porzingis this offseason, said with the East being as wide open as it is, it's a new front office, let's make a blockbuster. And this is a deal that's going to send Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu, Zachary Rissache, and 2 first-round picks to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Bucks get their first-round pick back in the 2026 draft. They already owe the swap worst between them and New Orleans, and now they would get the other side of that swap coming back. So say they ended up with the 5th worst record and New Orleans ended up with the 12th worst record, they're getting 2 lottery picks no matter what. They also get Atlanta's 2032 first round pick. You can ask for that first rounder as far out as possible, given the little bit of a chance that Giannis is no longer in Atlanta by then. You also get back Jalen Johnson, who's under a great contract that looked like a promising number 2 option before he got injured last year. You get Onyeka Okongwu, who is a very solid big man. He's not a great big man, but he's somebody that spaced the floor last year and is a great athlete, can catch alley-oops, set solid screens. And you get Zachary Rissache, who is the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 NBA draft. You get guys that can help you right now, but can also be in your long-term future. And getting your first round pick back in 2026 makes a lot of sense. For Atlanta, yeah, you were going all in around Trae Young and this core right now. They ended up getting a little bit of a new front office this offseason. They got Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the sign and trade market. They picked up Luke Kennard and Kristaps Porzingis and Asa Newell. You also have Vic Krejci, Muhammad Gay. This would be a deep enough team with Giannis Antetokounmpo on your squad. You can even ask back for a minimum type player like an Andre Jackson or an AJ Green. I don't think that Giannis ends up getting traded this offseason when we all thought there was a little bit of a chance he would have, especially after they waive and stretch Damian Lillard and they sign Miles Turner. But this is definitely still my favorite Giannis Antetokounmpo trade destination that makes too much sense if you were to actually be traded. Next up, I have a 1-for-1 trade here that I think helps out both teams, both in the short term and in the long term. For the LA Clippers, they are getting Grayson Allen in exchange for Bogdan Bogdanovic. This helps them out in the short term. Grayson Allen in 2024 was one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA, a season where he ended up shooting 46% from 3 on 6 attempts a night and led the NBA in three-point percentage. Last year felt like a quote-unquote down year for Grayson Allen, and he still shot 42% from 3 on 5.5 attempts. He would be under contract for the next 3 years at $16.8 million next year, $18 million in 2027, and a $19 million player option in 2028 that he would definitely opt into. But this could be an upgrade over Bogdan Bogdanovic because clearly the Clippers are trying to win a title right now with this core. With Kawhi and Harden and Brook Lopez's age, they've been linked to Chris Paul and Bradley Beal if he gets bought out. They just traded for John Collins' expiring contract for Norman Powell. So I do think going out and getting Grayson Allen, who can help you now but also in the future, would be wise for the LA Clippers. As for the Phoenix Suns, you're going to save a ton of money here because Bogdan Bogdanovic does not have a guaranteed contract after this year. You get out of Grayson Allen's long-term money. You still get a good movement shooter around Devin Booker and Jalen Green over there in Phoenix, but this is going to save you a lot of money in years 2026, 7, and 8. My next one here is Milwaukee saying, you know what, we're not trading Giannis Antetokounmpo, so we are going to call up the Pelicans, and we're going to do something the Denver Nuggets just did. We are going to trade a bad contract and the furthest first-round pick we could trade in 2032, when Giannis is going to be in his late 30s, in exchange for Herb Jones and Karl Matkovic. So before the Pelicans traded for Derek Queen, they owed a lot of the Milwaukee Bucks future first round picks, and they still do, but they can get a very juicy 2032 first rounder for Herb Jones, who will be a free agent in 2 years. He's an elite defender, and his value may be a little bit down now because he was banged up in 2025, but he was somebody that was on an all defensive team in 2024, and he could be exactly what Milwaukee needs on the perimeter. He'd be one of Giannis's best help defenders he's ever had in his time in Milwaukee, and this could be a true win now move around Giannis Antetokounmpo to show him that we could build a team in a wide open Eastern Conference. And you also get Karl Matkovic, who could space the floor as a young big man in this league that was technically a rookie last year, even though he was drafted a few years ago. For the Pelicans, like I said, maybe they're not going to extend Herb Jones eventually. Maybe he's going to ask for a lot of money, maybe more than Kyle Kuzma's making, because Kyle Kuzma does have a descending contract. He's off the books in 2 years. His expiring contract next year could be somewhat valuable, but you get that 2032 first round pick. You can allow more touches for perimeter guys coming off the bench like Jordan Hawkins and Micah Peavy. We'll see what they want to get out of Sadiq Bey next year as well, but it's just them accumulating more draft capital because they know that they aren't going to really compete for a title in 2026 or 2027 while Herb Jones is under that great contract. Here's a big one though. It is going to be John Morant getting traded to the Toronto Raptors. It does feel like there's still a chance Memphis could look at the vision that they could end up moving John Morant just because they're not going to be competing in the Western Conference right now, given how loaded it is, and they traded Desmond Bane. They'd be sending John Morant to the Toronto Raptors, who just fired Masai Ujiri, in exchange for Emmanuel Quickley, Grady Dick, Jonathan Mobo, and 3 future first round picks. I do feel like Emmanuel Quickley is still a good player in this league. He was so good for the Knicks in 2023. He was solid for both the Knicks and the Raptors in 2024. And last year, he was banged up a ton. I'm buying all the Emmanuel Quickley stock that you can offer me, and I think would still be a solid player in Memphis, and he would have a good defensive backcourt partner and maybe a Cedric Howard or Jalen Wells. You also get Grady Dick, one of the best off-ball moving shooters in the league, and also was a little bit better last year as a shot creator. You get Jonathan Mogbo, who is an extremely well-off hustle player coming out of San Francisco, a second rounder in the 2024 draft, and played well above his value in his rookie season. You get 3 future first-round picks. Maybe you need a little bit more draft capital. Maybe you need like an Osha Agbaji or somebody else going back to Memphis, but this is Toronto going out and getting a star player to create somewhat of a big 3 in the East with Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and John Morant. And like I said before about Milwaukee, if the East is as wide open as it is, or even what I said about Atlanta, Toronto can get aggressive, and they haven't had as good of a point guard as John Morant since maybe prime Kyle Lowry, maybe Fred VanVleet, but John Morant is definitely in a different tier than those guys. So maybe John Morant has a little bit less value. Maybe Memphis is trying to bottom out a little bit next year in a loaded 2026 draft. They could have 2 top 10 picks next year and really reshuffle their roster going forward. Maybe Ja doesn't want to be part of a rebuild, and he can go to a more aggressive team in the Eastern Conference while also getting a very good return for him. Let's go back to a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade idea. Another team that has been heavily linked to wanting to acquire Kuminga this offseason, the Sacramento Kings. This could be a sign and trade that could send good role players to the Golden State Warriors in Keegan Murray and Devin Carter in exchange for Jonathan Kuminga. And honestly, I like this trade for both sides. Now, I don't know if these division rivals would want to get a deal done, but I think Keegan Murray fits Golden State's offense a lot better than Jonathan Kuminga. He's a lot better moving off the ball, similar to what I said about Kobe White in Golden State's system before. Keegan Murray's had a good track record in the NBA with 3-point shooting. He would be a restricted free agent at the end of the 2026 season, but maybe you can work out an extension with him this offseason that would definitely be less than what Kobe White would want on his new deal. You also take a flyer on Devin Carter, who is a first-round lottery pick in 2024, somebody I was super high on coming out of Providence that I think can help out a winning team because of his role-playing ability. He can guard multiple positions. I still believe he could be a great offensive rebounder for somebody at his size and a solid three-point shooter as well. Another player Golden State could use in a playoff series. But in my opinion, Jonathan Kuminga has higher upside than both those players individually, and that's what Sacramento is taking a swing on, right? They traded away De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton over the last few years, but now you can get Jonathan Kuminga, who I'm not going to say is Jalen Brunson 2.0, but his numbers and his long-term outlook could be a lot better in a different situation where he's no longer being a secondary, tertiary, fourth, fifth, sixth option in an offense at times, and also played for a head coach that didn't really feel like he was all the way committed on, but maybe that would change over playing with Doug Christie in Sacramento. So Golden State gets guys that are going to be cheaper than Kuminga, but can also help them in a playoff run next year, and Sacramento can take a swing on a higher upside guy long term. The Utah Jazz have said it's a new era of Jazz basketball. We are going to allow the young guys like Ace Bailey, Walter Clayton, Bryce Sensabaugh, Keontae George, and others get the shots, right? They traded away John Collins. They got Kyle Anderson and a second-round pick in Kevin Love, who they're probably going to buy out. They ended up buying out Jordan Clarkson. They traded away Colin Sexton to Charlotte, so why not trade away Lauri Markkanen to the San Antonio Spurs? And Markkanen would cost a lot less than what Giannis Antetokounmpo would go for on the open market. The Jazz would get back Harrison Barnes is expiring, Keldon Johnson's 2-year deal, Jeremy Sohan's 1-year deal before he's a restricted free agent, and you get San Antonio's and Atlanta's 2026 swap, which could end up being a pick between 15 to 20, and San Antonio gets Lauri Markkanen, who's under contract for the next 4 years. There would only be a few years where that deal and Victor Wembanyama's next deal would overlap. You still have Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, Carter Bryant, who you just drafted, and Devin Vassell, but you can get an all-star level talent without having to give up Harper, Castle, or a haul of draft picks, which would have been the case if you were trading for Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo. 3 years ago, Markkanen won Most Improved Player, 25 points, 8.5 rebounds for a Utah Jazz team that did win 37 games and was very competitive in the Western Conference. His numbers have gone down as the Jazz have been less competitive over time in the West, but this could be a nice change of scenery for Lauri Markkanen. The San Antonio Spurs may not want to extend Jeremy Sohan. They may be out on Keldon Johnson as a true rotational piece long term, and you're not gutting your depth too much here, but you're getting somebody that could be an all-star level shot creator next to Victor Wembanyama going forward. The Lakers have been an interesting offseason team so far, so I do have a Lakers-Kings swap. Don't know if these division rivals would want to make a trade, but here we go. We have Malik Monk going back to the LA Lakers in exchange for Rui Hachimura. If you look at the Lakers backcourt depth right now, it's not great. It's Gabe Vincent, it's Jordan Goodwin, it's Bronny James, Dalton Connect, and Shake Milton around Luka Doncic, but Malik Monk could be somebody that can man the second unit, somebody that if Luka Doncic did get injured, can step into the starting lineup in a pinch. Last year was somewhat of a down year in Sacramento, but his usage went up after the De'Aaron Fox trade. He was asked to be a true point guard, but he was a very good scorer in LA back in 2022, where he shot 39% from three, averaged 14 points, and then he's been a good Sacramento King since. This could be a nice return back to LA for Rui Hachimura, who basically has 1 year remaining on his deal. We know that Sacramento has been trying to get off the Monk contract this offseason, trying to orchestrate him in a Dennis Schroeder sign and trade at times, and they traded away Jonas Valanciunas for Dario Saric to save some money as well. This would also save some money for them long term, picking up Rui Hachimura's expiring, but they also need to add some frontcourt guys, right? They have a ton of backcourt players in Sacramento with Zach LaVine, Devin Carter, Nick Clifford, Keon Ellis. This could be a good depth sell-off piece to get something you need a little bit more for both teams. And then we'll stay on the topic of an LA Lakers trade. I have Nick Claxton going to the LA Lakers. They could definitely use another big man even after signing DeAndre Ayton in exchange for Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber's expiring contracts, and a 2031 top 5 protected first round pick. I don't think Nick Claxton would net the Nets a ton at this moment. I know centers do come at a premium, and that's why the Lakers could want to get him. And if they could do it without giving up a Dalton Connect or a Rui Hachimura, you go out and do that. As Cam Johnson did net the Brooklyn Nets one future first round pick unprotected, but they did take on Michael Porter Jr.'s bad contract. In my opinion, Cam Johnson is worth more in this league than Nick Claxton, so the Nets can get some expiring money, still have a little bit more flexibility in the offseason of 2026, and they get a Lakers first round pick in 2031 top 5 protected that would go to top 3 protected, and then it would be unprotected after that. The Nets don't really need Nick Claxton at the moment, right? They're going to be one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference next year. You can have Day'Ron Sharpe, Noah Clowney, and Danny Wolf be your center rotation. It's not going to result in a lot of wins, but you want to see as much action as you can out of those guys going forward. And the Lakers don't have to give up any key rotational pieces here, and they just have to give up one future first-round pick for Nick Claxton, who could be their starting center and a good rim protector for them in the Luka Doncic, LeBron James era before it's all said and done. I mentioned a couple Sacramento Kings trades in this video. I feel like they have a big move coming. I'm just trying to pinpoint what it's going to be. We know that the Toronto Raptors have been shopping around RJ Barrett for a while now, so let's do a Malik Monk and Drew Eubanks trade for RJ Barrett. For the Toronto Raptors, they get a little bit of money saving here. They're a luxury tax team right now, so this would save them some money going forward. Malik Monk is a lot better of a three-point shooter and an off-ball mover than RJ Barrett, so he could fit very well with the second unit or in the starting lineup if they wanted to run some point Scotty Barnes and have Malik Monk and Emmanuel quickly play off of Scotty at the one going forward. They also get a little bit more big man depth, something they could definitely use as well in the front court. As Sacramento, you take somebody in RJ Barrett, who in my opinion still has higher upside long-term than Malik Monk. He's a few years younger and he could still be a solid shot creator in the half court. I know RJ Barrett comes with his ups and his downs, but I think this could be a solid add for Sacramento, especially if they were looking to get off of Malik Monk anyway going forward. They would have to take back some money in this trade, so it's really just trying to figure out what Vivek Ranadive wants to do with this team. Does he want to go into the luxury tax? Can they move a DeMar DeRozan? Can they move a Zach LaVine? I don't have any other Kings trades in this video, but I don't think any team wants to take on Sabonis's or LaVine's contracts right now. Maybe a team tries to acquire DeMar DeRozan. I thought Miami would have been a perfect fit, but they just got Norman Powell, so maybe a team like Milwaukee would want to go after DeMar DeRozan at this point. And I do have one more Lakers trade. If they weren't going to go out and get Nick Claxton, they could do a trade with the Chicago Bulls. They could send them Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber's expiring, and a 2032 second-round pick for Nikola Vucevic's expiring. The Bulls should have traded Vucevic a long time ago, and at this point, it's been reported that they are not getting any good offers or really much interest for Vucevic. But if they offered the Lakers this, the Lakers should accept this, right? Nikola Vucevic is not a great rim protector. He's not a great defender overall at the 5 spot, but he could be a good floor spacer and a pick and pop option with Luka Doncic going forward. He shot 40% from 3 last year for the Chicago Bulls, and it's just a 1-year deal. And you're trading some guys in your rotation that you're not going to rely on too much in the playoffs, but Vucevic could be a solid big man rotational option with DeAndre Ayton if they didn't trade for like a Nick Claxton. And for Chicago, you get some expiring money. You don't have to take any bad long-term money on for Nikola Vucevic, and you get a 2032 second-round pick. It's better than nothing, right? And lastly, it's a big one. I have no idea what New Orleans is going to do in a year from now. I have no idea if they're ever going to trade Zion Williamson, but a fun team that could trade for Zion would be the Charlotte Hornets. And this would be in exchange for Miles Bridges, Tidjane Salaam, a first-round pick, a top 10 pick in the 2024 draft, a first-round pick in 2026 via Charlotte unprotected. Yeah, they would have to mortgage next year's unprotected first, and Dallas's first-round pick in 2027 back from the PJ Washington trade that happened at the 2024 deadline. So for Charlotte here, you're now creating one of the more must-see teams when their star players are healthy, right? LaMelo Ball throwing lobs to Zion Williamson. Yes, sign me up for that. They would be a league pass favorite. You'd also have Brandon Miller out there, Con Knipple, Liam McNeely, Colin Sexton, Trey Mann. This would be a very deep Charlotte Hornets team. They wouldn't be a great defensive team, but I don't think their defense gets that much impacted from this deal. But man, they're going to sell a lot of tickets. Zion goes back to the state of North Carolina, and they could be a team everybody would root for in the Eastern Conference next year and going forward. He fits the timeline with their young core, and Zion has that contract where they can get out of it if it turns into a disaster. For the Pelicans, though, you go in a different era. You get Miles Bridges, who could still help you next year. He's still a solid scorer in this league because you do not own your first-round pick, but he could space the floor better than Zion. You take a flyer on Tidjane Salaam, who has 3 years left under this rookie contract. You also get Charlotte's first-round pick next year. Even if they got Zion, I can't see them picking outside the top 20, and you get another first-round pick down the line as well. It's really hard to figure out Zion's value, but I think if it doesn't go well in Charlotte, hey, getting Charlotte's 2026 first could be nice. If you're New Orleans, you get 2 players that can help you now and in the long term. And Charlotte gets one of the biggest names in the NBA that maybe just needs a change of scenery after all. So that was just 14 trades. I'm not going to have a trade for the 15th spot, but it's just 2 buyout options. I wanted to talk about Damian Lillard, who's already bought out, and Bradley Beal, where it looks like he is going to be bought out like Damian Lillard. For Damian Lillard, I would love to see him sign with the Boston Celtics. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to play in a backcourt with Derek White. Peyton Pritchard could still be be in that 6-man role going forward, and you're not going to need to overplay Peyton Pritchard and throw him into a new role completely. And Dame isn't a great defender by any means, so if you have him with Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum when they're all healthy in 2027, I think it makes the most sense for Dame trying to win a ring, because it is very up in the air if he's going to even play for a team in the 2026 playoffs. And yes, a team like Orlando or Cleveland or New York would be better than Boston next year, but Dame could be on a title contender in 2027 and could still play in a major big market. As for Bradley Beal and he gets bought out, I would actually love to see him replace Damian Lillard in Milwaukee. Yes, the LA Clippers would be a lot of fun. Yes, the LA Lakers would be a lot of fun, or the Miami Heat. But I do feel like if he ended up going to the Milwaukee Bucks, he could be pretty solid for the Bucks. Bradley Beal is not a bad player. Is he an overpaid player? Yes, but he is not a bad player by any means. I don't know if he's turning into one of the more underrated players in the league, because he's a fantastic third option, and I think he could be a solid enough number 2 next to Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee. Bradley Beal will get so many good looks. It's not going to be Dame and Giannis 2.0, but it could be pretty close to it. And now you essentially replace Damian Lillard with Miles Turner and Bradley Beal this offseason. Maybe that's how Milwaukee can save things around Giannis Antetokounmpo going forward. So that is going to be for me. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know what you guys think about it down below. Did you agree with some of these trades? Did you disagree? Let me know where you think Dame and Bradley Beal should end up signing down below. Drop a thumbs up if you guys did enjoy. Make sure you check out my TikTok and Instagram down below in the description. I'm almost at 7,000 followers on Instagram, so trying to grow that over there, trying to hit 10K before the NBA season starts. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.